Death is not something that's going to happen one day. It's something that is happening today. Death and our mortality loom over us every single day. I am 22 years old and I've died 22 years and I am dying today, and it's all leading up to a ultimate death. But I think it's very important to realize that you are actively dying, that what you are doing today is gone and you'll never be able to get it back. Your life is a culmination of just days, and however old you are when you die is how many days you lived. And today is just one of those days. But it's one of the days in the many that can count as your death or your life. And I think we lose something very special when we put death off into the future as something that's going to happen. Because we allow ourselves to be tricked that we have so much time. We allow ourselves to believe that in a way we're immortal, that today I escaped death. But you don't know that for sure. We are mortal, and that means any day we could die. Yes, it may be unlikely for someone of my age to die, but it happens. Crazier things have happened. And when you don't accept that that's a possibility, I believe you can go through youth, middle age, and even old age just wasting your time in so much shallow, trivial things that don't matter, that you don't even really care about. You're just doing it to pass the time. But in reality, time is all you have. A little bit of time makes up a day, and then a lot of days makes up a week, then a month, then a year, and you only got, if you're lucky, 80 of those. But we just waste it so much because we put it off into the future. We put it off as something that's going to happen, not something that is actively, currently happening. And I believe this allows people to stay in bad situations and do things they don't really want to do. If you kept at the forefront of your brain the fact that you are dying right now, every second that passes is another second closer to death. You wouldn't stay at that job that you hate. You wouldn't stay in that conversation that is going down a path that you don't want to go down and you don't want to talk about and you don't even really want to listen to. You just leave. If somebody told you today is your last day you're going to live when you woke up, you wouldn't put up with it. You wouldn't show up to your job. You wouldn't waste your time having trivial conversations with people that you don't even know or that don't even really matter to you. But this is how everyone goes about their day on a day-to-day basis. And I like the idea of acting as if you're going to die today, but also act as if you're going to live forever. Because obviously, if you were going to die today, you wouldn't you would do things that wouldn't wouldn't make sense on a time scale of life. You wouldn't make money because or you wouldn't make money for the future because you're not going to be around. But if you're going to live forever, then you need some money to survive. So you do need to live today truly like it's your last, but also the potential that you'll be immortal for things like money, but also for things of, degrading yourself. It doesn't mean just because you're going to die today, you should go party and do a bunch of crazy stuff, because there's a chance you still might live forever and you'll have to deal with the consequences of your actions. So simultaneously, you should be living as if you're immortal and today is your last day. And I think when you're doing something that you really don't want to do, that insight helps even more. Because imagine doing something that you don't want to do for, every single day, and doing that either today on your last day or every day for the rest of eternity. I like going to the gym, and if it was my last day on earth, I would go to the gym. And if it was if I figured out today that I was going to be immortal, I would still go to the gym. So, that's an activity that stands up to both scenarios. And that's how you can know that it's something you truly value doing. And if I had a job that I liked, then I hope I would want to do it in both scenarios. I enjoy reading, and if it was my last day, I think I'd read a little bit. I enjoy writing. I think I'd write a little bit. And that's something I'd also want to do if I was going to be around forever. I like hiking, so I'd probably go for a hike. You got to structure your day around these type of things. And yeah, you can't always go off to the mountains and hike, but you can always just go for a little walk. That's really all hiking is. It's just walking. So I think we're losing something very special when we act as if death is something off in the future. Stoics talk about contemplating their mortality constantly and the people around them. And I think some people think this is dark, but I believe it's actually a very positive activity because it allows you to be more thankful and grateful for the people in your life and the things that you have while you have them, because it reminds you that they're not going to be around forever, which is just the truth. There's nothing wrong with being reminded of the truth. As Shakespeare says, things are neither good or bad. Thinking makes them so. Death is neither good or bad. It's your thought around death that makes it so. It's a natural thing. And I think to keep it in your mind in a positive way is a good thing. But it's all how you internalize it and how you view the situation. Now, I've spent a lot of time contemplating the fact that I'm going to die, and that's led me to have a richer experience in life. It's led me to waste less time. It's led me down more deep work and doing things that I might not have done in the past because I just was like, I don't really want to do it, or I do want to do it, but I don't want to. I'll wait. I'll do it some other time. But then it's like you remember you're gonna die someday. It's like, well, maybe I won't get another time. There won't always be a tomorrow. That's why you have to act today. But when you convince yourself that death is something that's going to happen to you in the future, then you lose that blessing. And there's, a bunch of stories about people who figure out that they get cancer and they, quit their job and they start living the life they actually want to live and start doing the things they've always wanted to do. And, they go into, I think it's like remission, when the cancer stops growing. And their life is just so enriched because of the fact that they thought they were going to die. Like, imagine if they lived their whole life thinking that they only had potentially a couple months to live. But what people don't understand is that's always the case. It's always the case that you could be on the verge of your last couple weeks on Earth. And yet you waste hours watching television shows that don't matter. You waste hours scrolling on your phone, looking at things you're never even going to remember. I think it's all because of the fact that no one comes to feel comfortable with the idea of death. They forget it. They don't want to think about it. But in reality, that's what everyone's afraid of. I recently read a little bit of the book called The Denial of Death by Ernest Becker. And I didn't get too far into it, but I plan on finishing it sometime. But he talks about in the beginning of the book how every 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 fear that anyone has stems from the idea that they're going to die. You ask people what they're most afraid of, and they'll tell you, "Oh, public speaking." But are they really afraid of public speaking? Or are they afraid of social death? Are they afraid of people laughing at them? Are they afraid of making a fool of themselves and having a sort of death in their social life? It all really is stems from death. Why don't, like, if you knew that you weren't going to die doing, say an activity, why wouldn't you do it? If you were, up in a plane about to go skydiving and you're afraid, if God came down and said, you're not going to die, I promise you, and you somehow knew it was true, what would there be afraid of? What else is you afraid of in that situation other than death? But no one says they're afraid of death. They say, I'm afraid of heights. Why are you afraid of heights? Because you're afraid of falling and dying. Everyone truly is just led by the fear of death and doing things that they don't want to do because they fear death. But in doing so, they allow themselves to be blinded by the fact that they're gonna die, and all their fears stem from death. And they lie to themselves and they tell them that I don't want to do this for such and such reason, but it's really because they're not comfortable with their mortality. And I believe it's so much scarier to never live than to die, because it's a guarantee that you're going to die. It's a guarantee. But it's not a guarantee that you're going to live. You may not live. You may come to your last day on your deathbed. You may know it's your last day. And you may look back on your life and say, I never lived. What a pity that is. You may say, I worked 50 years at a job I didn't like, to make money I didn't need, to buy things I didn't want, to impress people I didn't like. And what a pity that is. And that could all be stemmed from the idea that you never contemplated that final day, when you would be looking back on what you're doing today, because that's the culmination of your life, and never ask, how is this going to age? How am I going to view this when I'm on my deathbed? Am I going to be happy that I spent this time doing this? No. Then why do it? Oh, because I'm afraid of, you know, poverty. Why are you afraid of poverty? Yeah, no, because I don't, I want money to do the things I like. No. You're afraid of poverty because us humans, we escalate everything. Even if we don't know we do, we do. It's, I believe, it's, oh, why don't you want to quit your job? Oh, because, I'm afraid I'll get a job that's worse in the future. Well, why does that matter? And because, I'll make less money and I'll have less free time and yada, yada, yada. And like, well, why does that matter? Because, well, I want free time and money to do the things I want to do. Well, why does that matter? I don't know. And it's like, because you're going to die one day. It's because you're going to die that you want to have this time to do these things that you like. But it's like there's like a black void in people's head, and they just can't come to that conclusion that they're going to die. And most of their actions stem from that result, even though they don't know it. And they lose something valuable because all their actions stem from this thing, but they're not even aware of it. And they can't even gain the insights that they could gain from coming to terms with it and enjoying each moment so much more, because it's finite. You can't have the moment you're living again. You can never do something for the first time ever again. And you have a limited amount of time. You can't read every book in the world. You can't watch every video. You can't learn every skill. You can't see every square inch of the earth. It's impossible. But we act as if somehow we can do it. And we act as if death is not something we need to worry about. You know, we're not surrounded by a war. We're not in a battle. It's not around us. And I think that's something the modern age, I don't know if I can say gets wrong, but, you know, the fact that we don't see death. You know, back in the day, death was so common. You know, you just saw it. It was just around, whether it be, you know, animals or humans. Like in the medieval ages or the middle ages, death was just around. You would see it constantly. You would know people constantly who died. But in this day and age, you don't get that anymore. It's not, I guess I wouldn't say rare, but it's not a common thing to see. You know, we have like funeral homes and morgues, and you just send off that stuff and it doesn't pollute the world, but it's a profound realization that you can gain by realizing, like, oh yeah, I will end up like that one day. And I don't like the idea of just living this life for the next life, because then it allows you to waste this life with no certainty that there is a next life. You go through this life just getting by, and, you know, because you believe in the next life. But then what if you get to the day and it's just blackness and there is no next life? And you realize you wasted all of your time here for something that was never going to come. You know, we truly do wait to live, and it's very sad. It's very sad. I believe the best thing you can do is act as if you're going to die today, but also act as if you are immortal. Like I said earlier, if you're working a job you don't like, and if it was your last day, you wouldn't want to do it, and if you had to do it forever, you wouldn't want to do it, try to find something else. What's the worst that can happen? You know, you're going to die, because that's already the case. Might as well try to make a really meaningful, rich, enjoyable life while you're here. Take some risk, especially if you're young, because this is the time to take risk. Before you have responsibilities, before you can't take risk, because you will die.